All right, so I'm Kristen Tustulovsky. I'm a registered dietitian at Northside Hospital with the Cancer Institute. We have a team of about 10 dietitians that are specifically board certified in oncology nutrition to help service our patients that go to those programs. So like Katie said, I do these presentations every month. It's usually the third Tuesday of the month at 12:15. And then this month's was, I'm so grateful that it was done by the cancer support community. So this is part of their Frankly Speaking series. And there was a board certified oncology nutritionist who made these slides. So again, I'm very grateful to her for putting these things together. So today is about eating well. So the following slides were medically reviewed by their dietitian, Lisa Macaroni, which I think is a great last name for a dietitian. And as a disclosure, the program was developed by the cancer support community. They developed the content independently, and then they had it reviewed by third-party sources. The cancer support community has final control over the content of their programs, and this program was generously sponsored by Celgene, and I was engaged by our local cancer support community here to give the presentation. So I have no financial relationships to Celgene. I have no idea even what they do, so that is great. There. All right, so on to the good stuff. So our topics today are managing common eating concerns, helpful nutrition tips during and after treatment, recommendations for cancer prevention, the importance of phytonutrients, creating a smart survivorship plan, the benefits of an oncology dietitian, and then some useful resources for you guys, and then we'll have some time for some Q&A. So it's a lot of stuff that's jam-packed in the presentation. You're going to see anything from prevention through what to do when you are going through treatment to maybe what you should be doing while you're in survivorship. And then we're going to jump, like Katie said, over to our food demo. So why is nutrition important through your cancer journey? So before treatment ever begins, it's very important. They are starting to call it prehab. So it's like rehab, but before, to make sure that you are at a good place nutritionally to get started in your treatments. And so it can help you go ahead and start managing some of the problems that you're having with eating before ever getting started and having some of those side effects. It helps you to prevent weight loss. Sometimes people get diagnosed and they're kind of grateful that they lost that 10 to 15 pounds unexpectedly, but that's not really how we want you guys losing weight. And then you're also going to be keeping your bodies strong to be able to accept the treatment better and to help prevent treatment breaks and things like that. So good nutrition during your treatment can help with side effects that can be caused. So there could be nausea, taste changes, diarrhea, those kind of things that you can manage with good nutrition. Maintaining your body weight and your muscle mass. So again, sometimes people get excited about that weight loss beforehand, but a lot of times it tends to be your lean muscle mass and not your fat mass. So you're stuck being a little bit more fluffy than you once were, and you're not having that lean muscle mass that helps keep our immune system strong. Good nutrition can help prevent treatment breaks and treatment delays. So sometimes people have to have delays for various reasons, whether your blood counts are low or you're just too fatigued to continue on. So these are good tips on how to keep your body well nourished to get through that. Good nutrition also helps to prevent hospital stays, and then if you do get admitted into the hospital for something, people who have good nutrition status tend to have shorter lengths of stay. So even if you do have to go in, hopefully you don't have to stay as long. And then it also helps with eating problems like nausea or decreased appetite. So again, working through some of those things by being on a routine and being scheduled can help with those side effects, and we'll talk a little bit more about each of those. And then once you get all the way through your treatment, afterwards, sometimes people have lingering side effects that can stay with them for months and even years. And so you have to learn to work through that. So it's your new normal and trying to figure out how to best cope with those things as far as your nutrition goes. And then you don't want to get all the way through cancer treatment just to develop another chronic illness like diabetes or heart disease because you're not eating properly. So we like to help with those as well. So these are a list of the common side effects that are associated with chemotherapy, and everybody responds differently. If you've been through your journey, it's probably not like other people's journey when you hear people talk about it now, but you can have appetite changes, constipation, diarrhea, dry mouth, fatigue, mouth sores, smell aversions, taste changes, weight loss, and then managing your weight can be difficult as well. So we're going to go through each of these and kind of the nutrition tips on how you can best combat these. So for appetite changes, if you're not feeling good and you just don't feel like eating, it's very important to try to eat small, frequent meals. I swear patients just want to slap me across the face sometimes when I tell them they have to eat every 1 to 2 hours because they don't want to eat at all. And so I'm asking them to do a lot and to climb a hill. But those small, frequent meals help to keep things on your stomach, and then it also helps to keep your body in a routine, and we as humans tend to like routine. And then the other part of this is to focus on nutrient-dense foods. So you'll hear a lot of times high calorie, high protein, whatever you can get in is what we want, because it is important that you are feeding your body to make sure it can keep going. So keeping track of what you're eating and how it makes you feel. So there could be some trigger foods that make you feel more lousy or that you feel good after you eat them. And so you want to keep a log of that so you can keep up with those things and try to focus on what to avoid and what to incorporate so you're able to eat. Eating every 2 to 3 hours can help. Again, I tell people to set alarms all the time because if you aren't getting hungry, you're not going to remember to eat. It could be hours and hours before you finally sit down and be like, oh, I haven't eaten all day. And we want to prevent that from happening. Eating with friends and family and being social tends to get people in the mood for eating. So we love, as a society, to go out to eat, to be around others. Sometimes it gets us in trouble if you're trying to lose weight and you go out with friends and you're like, I'm only going to eat half of this, but by the end you've eaten all of it. Those kinds of things help to pick up people's spirits. And so if you have friends or families that you are doing some cooking for, or you're caregiving for, making sure that you're sitting down and enjoying meals and that kind of thing with those people, or for yourself, asking people to come over during meal times is helpful. And then having easy to eat and easy prepare foods at home. So the last thing you want to do if you're not feeling well is to figure out what you want to eat and then actually having to cook it. As far as constipation goes, so you want to try to eat more foods that promote bowel movements, which are a lot of your high fiber foods. So a lot of chemotherapies cause constipation. A lot of people have to be on pain medicines during chemo or radiation that cause a lot of constipation. So sometimes you have a lot of things working against you in this realm, but including those high fiber foods where you can is very helpful. Trying things like dried fruits as snacks can be a good way to add some extra fiber in. Trying fruit juices like prune juice. I have a small trick where you heat up prune juice to, not where it's like piping hot or anything, but a warm prune juice and melt a little butter or olive oil in there. It seems to work wonders for people. So it's just a little bit, like 4 ounces. Anybody can get that down. Hold your nose. But prune juice, apple juice. I used to have a patient that 4 ounces of apple juice would cause a bowel movement. 8 ounces of apple juice would cause more constipation for days. So like it's always like a delicate balance between people's bodies. So you just have to find what works for you. Drinking hot beverages, so that coffee or hot tea in the mornings helps to stimulate your bowels, so it gets things moving in there, which can help you have a bowel movement. Staying on a routine is also very helpful. So if you are used to drinking coffee or something warm in the morning, a lot of people get off-put by coffee when they start treatment for some reason. So maybe finding something else that's warm in the morning can help you keep that routine going. Making sure you're drinking enough water. So your water is always based off of your body weight. But usually the minimum would be 64 ounces for a person, like a normal sized person. So that's the minimum, and that's usually what the doctors are telling you to strive for. And then your dietitian's going to come in behind them and be like, can we do a little bit more? So anything that melts to room temperature we would count as a fluid, but you do want to make sure that some of it's water. Most of it should be water, but depends on what you have going on. If you're having a lot of gas and bloating, abdominal discomfort, that kind of thing, you want to try to stay away from gassy vegetables like your cruciferous vegetables, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower. Those things can cause more gas during that time. You can also try other, Beano and that kind of thing if your doctor says it's okay. And then moving more, just being up. So again, sometimes when you're feeling bad or fatigued, you want to sit down and you're hunched over and you're not letting gravity do its thing. So if you're up and walking around and you're moving and twisting, that helps to get things moving, which is helpful. Doing yoga, great chair yoga here before this class that you can go to. And then the opposite spectrum, diarrhea. So you want to choose easy to tolerate foods. So sometimes people call it the brat diet, where you're focusing on good, bland foods, are very helpful. So stuff like white rice, oatmeal, applesauce, those foods have soluble fiber, and that helps to pull the water out of your bowel so your stool has a chance to form. So it really can help slow things down. I made a great overnight oats recipe that has a lot of soluble fiber in it. So you can think of recipes like that that can help slow down some of those bowel movements. But even just like switching to canned fruit during that time is helpful. And sometimes you're like, oh, I was always told to avoid these things. Everything with nutrition is a journey. So these are the things that you have to do when you're having these kinds of symptoms. And then if you're not having these symptoms, you can do other things like adding more fiber when you're constipated. For example, you'd want the fruit peel and that kind of thing to add more fiber. You want to avoid foods and beverages that can make your diarrhea worse, which would be your high fiber foods. So sitting down with a big kale salad might cause, it's going to speed up your GI tract, which is normally what we want. But if you already have diarrhea, you don't want that to keep happening. You want it to stop. And then high fat foods. So sometimes people are trying to stuff milkshakes and high fat things down you, and it might just be a little bit too much for your body to tolerate. So you just want to be careful there. A lot of fried foods, more of your comfort foods contain higher fat, and so that can make the situation a little worse. Staying hydrated with a fluid that has electrolytes. So depending on how severe your diarrhea is, you might want to try Pedialyte. Is always a good thing. Some people will do stuff like Gatorade, but really you can make your own hydration solutions at home. You can drink water, a little bit of juice, those kinds of things will be helpful. Consuming food sources that have probiotics to help with your GI tract. So yogurts tend to have probiotics, kefir, which is like a liquid yogurt. So those are good in protein, which is helpful to you, but also they have those probiotics. And then other fermented foods. So sometimes they're okay for treatment, sometimes they're not, depending on if they're pasteurized. And then talking to your healthcare team before you take any supplements, especially probiotic supplements, just to make sure, because there's a lot of them on the market. Some of them are live strains, and if you already have a compromised immune system, we're just not sure how safe those might be. So you just want to be cautious there. As far as dry mouth goes, so if you're having anything that's going on with your mouth, radiation to your head and neck area, lungs sometimes can cause dry mouth. Some chemos are just known to cause dry mouth. Sucking on sugar-free tart candies like lemon drops or peppermints can be a good way. You kind of pucker and saliva fills your mouth. Chewing on sugar-free gum between meals can be helpful. The caveat to this is they usually have a lot of sugar alcohols in them, which cause diarrhea. So you just gotta be a little bit careful. It's a balance, but limiting any foods that are dry and hard, trying to add stuff like gravies, sopping like soups and that kind of thing will help to soften the food to get it down. But baked potatoes, unless you're adding like a lot of sour cream and some other stuff to it to help make it more moist, those can get stuck. Peanut butter, kind of get stuck in your mouth, especially if you have a dry mouth. Tough meats, doughy breads can get stuck, or they just feel like they keep growing in your mouth and you can't swallow. And then making sure that you are drinking enough fluids to stay hydrated. So if your body doesn't have enough fluids, it's not really going to spare it to make more saliva for you. So you want to try to make sure that you're staying well hydrated and keeping a bottle of water with you or whatever you like to drink all the time to make sure you're able to get those fluids in. Fatigue, this is a big one. I've yet to meet one cancer patient that hasn't had a little bit of fatigue at some point during their treatment. So enlisting your family and friends. A lot of people have a hard time accepting help from others or asking for help, but you have family and friends who want to try to help. So even if it's the most mundane task to you, they would be happy to be pointed in the right direction of what they can do to help make your life a little easier. So cooking on days that you feel well and cooking in bulk, throwing stuff in the freezer so you don't have to worry about cooking on days that you don't feel well, having a list prepared of foods that you do like to eat that somebody could go grocery shopping for you, or its favorite foods that they could make for you, is always very helpful because, you know, again, everybody wants to help out their friends and their family and their neighbors, and they'll make you whatever casserole's their family favorite, but if you don't like the stuff that's in it, it's not really helpful to you. The more you can move, the better. So again, it's a very, you don't want to wear yourself out, but you don't want to sit down either. So the longer you sit at rest, the harder it is for you to get going again. So if you're able to get up and sit at the table for meals versus having somebody feed you on the couch or in your bed, you know, there are some days where that is necessary, but if you're able to get up, do your chores, do your laundry, help with the dishes after meal times, those kind of things to help keep you moving is very helpful and prevents further fatigue. Taking one day at a time and looking at each day as a new day. So if you've been a super busy person your whole life and this kind of knocks you on your butt and you're like, why can't I do as much as I used to be able to do? It's kind of accepting that new normal again and being okay and knowing that you will hopefully get back to a place that you once were. And then setting a menu and eating on a schedule and following it is very important, because if you're not getting enough nutrition in, that's just going to make your fatigue even worse. So then you're not going to want to move, and then you're going to be sitting there forever, and then it's going to be harder for you to get up. So it's kind of a snowball that just keeps growing if you don't stop it. Mouth sores are one of the most common nutrition side effects that hinders our ability to eat. So sometimes people can push through the nausea or they can push through the dry mouth, but if you have a sore in your mouth, like think about having a canker sore but all over, you know, that makes it very difficult for someone to eat. So you want to try to choose foods that are soft and moist, that don't have rough edges. Like as good as that fresh baked bread is back there, you'd probably have to pick out the inside and leave the crust because that would hurt. If you love crunchy peanut butter, you have to switch to smooth peanut butter because those crunchy nuts would hurt. But creamy soups, yogurt, scrambled eggs, just those real soft things that you can almost just swallow without having to keep in your mouth for a long time. Avoiding things that are acidic and spicy, you know, it's like an open wound. As soon as it gets in there, that's going to hurt. And then there are great oral mouth rinses that you can make at home that are just salt, baking soda, and water. And that helps to kill the bad bacteria that tends to grow in our mouth, and it makes it an environment where they can't thrive anymore. So it helps give that wound a chance to heal. And then sometimes it's just festering in there, which is making the sore worse. So using it as like a preventative measure can be very helpful as well. And then there's all kinds of new products out on the market that are helping with mouth sores and kind of coating your mouth before you eat to give you a chance to eat too. So always talk to your care team. They have tricks up their sleeves, I promise. Nausea and vomiting. It seems counterintuitive to want to eat every 1 to 2 hours when you're nauseated, but keeping something on your stomach so your stomach acid isn't just sloshing around is very helpful. Choosing those bland room temperature foods that are easy to get down, they don't have a lot of smell that's going to kind of knock you down, are good. Even just plain white saltine crackers. You know, I was talking earlier that sometimes people want to make all these changes as soon as they're diagnosed with cancer to start eating kale salads and all kinds of stuff. And you know, if you've never done that before, it's very hard on your system to just convert right away. So one, you always want to kind of stair-step that fiber in. But two, if you're having nausea, it's more important that you're eating and eating things that you can tolerate than it is to skip meals or think that you have to get down, you know, big salads and that kind of stuff. So you're kind of relying on plain pastas, plain rice, pretzels, those saltine crackers, just to keep you going. Limiting your fried food and greasy foods, those just sit on our stomach for a long amount of time, and so if you're not digesting them, they're just sitting there making you queasy. So trying to avoid those. Staying hydrated, sipping on fluids throughout the day. If you find that water makes you nauseated, which surprisingly makes a lot of people nauseated, switching to other things that you are able to tolerate. So it might just be half juice, half water, or you did find that Gatorade works for you, or those kind of things to help get some fluids in you. And then always talking to your healthcare provider about your nausea. So I see a lot of patients who don't like to take medicines. They've never taken a lot of medicines, and Their anti-nausea ones are kind of the ones that they're like, oh, I'll just take them when I'm so nauseated I can't do anything, versus trying to prevent that nausea from happening. So I know that it's hard if you don't like taking pills to take more pills, but sometimes you have to, just to get you through those couple days, maybe after chemo. Smell aversions go hand in hand with taste changes. So you can imagine if you lift up a plate or you open up the microwave and that smell comes out and hits you, sometimes it smells great and you're like, oh, I'm excited to eat this, but other times you're like, ugh, what is that? And it's probably perfectly fine, but it smells very off to you and it's very off-putting. So if that is the case, trying to stay out of the kitchen while the food is being cooked. If you have to be the cook, opening the windows and the doors to kind of let that ventilation get through. Trying to focus on cold foods or room temperature foods. So doing sandwiches, cottage cheese, yogurt, those kind of things don't really have that smell, or at least not a strong smell. Opening the window, turning the fan on over the stove so the steam is going into there. Let's see. I think they have 2 lines on here that are basically the same. And then lighting a pleasant scented candle or essential oil diffuser to offset smells. I feel like that could make it worse, but maybe in certain situations it would make it better. Asking family and friends not to wear cologne, strong smelling bath things is also very helpful. Like, my husband is always very confused about why I don't wear perfume, and I'm like, I haven't worn perfume in 10 years because I work in a hospital. You don't want to make other people sick. Taste changes. So when food is bland or just doesn't really have much of a taste, you want to try to add things that will give it some taste. So stronger flavors, sauces, condiments. Citrus foods tend to be able to pull through, so your taste buds can taste them. Adding spices, you don't have to necessarily load up on salt to try to get a salty flavor, but dill and oregano and other spices are very helpful in enhancing some of those flavors. And then also marinating meats is very helpful because it also helps to make them more tender, which is nice. And then if you have metallic or bitter tastes, you can add sweeteners such as honey or maple syrup to some things. Using plastic utensils instead of silverware, that's a big one for a lot of people. If you are nauseated and you're drinking ginger ale, trying to get it out of bottles instead of cans, anything that has metal can maybe transfer that taste over, is what we found. So you want to focus on that. And then for weight loss, if you're having unintentional weight loss, meaning you're not trying to lose weight because you should not probably be losing weight while you're going through treatment, but you're losing weight because you're skipping meals because you're not feeling well, those kind of things lead to that unintended weight loss. You want to try to add in higher calorie things. So it could be that you eat 3 bites of food and you're full. So we need to figure out how to get as many calories and protein in those 3 bites as possible, and then trying to work with you on eating those 3 bites every 1 to 2 hours. So hopefully your calories and your protein will add up by the end of the day. And then again, easy and ready to eat foods at home are very helpful because, again, if nothing sounds good, you want to just be able to go to the fridge and pull out a yogurt and be like, I can get this little 4 ounces down over the next hour. So just some other ways to add extra calories. If you do stuff like oatmeal for breakfast, you can add a little bit of peanut butter in there. You can top it with some dried fruits to give it a little bit of a different texture, but also add calories. Granola is usually very high calorie and it's got some good fiber in there. Chia seeds is another healthy fat and a good way to add calories. Milk, so instead of making oatmeal with water, you can switch to milk. Better yet, you could do whole milk just to get some extra calories and protein that way. And then adding a little pure maple syrup to help sweeten it for you, but it'll also add calories. And if you like more savory stuff like your soups for lunch, adding a little bit of olive oil in there, just again, more healthy fat and calories. You can do heavy cream or whole milk. Again, you're not like dumping the whole thing in, but a splash here and there really adds up. Sprinkling cheese on stuff, if you do casseroles or salads, that would be a good way to add some additional calories. Stuff like sour cream. And most women have been on diets their whole life, so you buy fat-free everything. So also focusing on full fat versions of foods is very helpful. Adding a little avocado to your recipes, and then nuts on top. Also healthy fat, healthy protein there. As far as weight gain, so some treatments cause us to gain weight, or you're put on steroid treatments and you just feel like you can eat the whole buffet. Which is good, but you, again, don't want to buy a whole new wardrobe. So avoiding the higher calorie foods, avoiding stuff with a lot of cream in it, cream sauces, things that have cheese, fried foods, filling up your plate with lower calorie options, trying to snack on fruits, trying to eat those vegetables, whole fiber or high fiber whole grains, so trying to do your breads as whole grains. Avoiding high calorie sugar sweetened beverages, so no Chick-fil-A lemonade or sweet tea, baked goods, processed foods you want to try to avoid, and then asking a friend to stay active with you. So it's perfect fall weather out these days. You can go out for a walk in your neighborhood, and that way you're not alone. So in case you do get fatigued, you don't feel like you're stranded. And then keeping a food journal to help you stay motivated. So looking at all the good things that you've done, and then maybe some areas of improvement that you can work on. It's a journey. We all get there. And as far as long-term side effects, so we see these quite often, but trying to stay positive, taking it day by day. Again, you don't have to change everything in your life all at one time. It's okay to pick one or two things to work on and get those under your belt, and then find a few other things that you might want to improve along the way. Taking breaks to rest throughout the day is important. You don't, sometimes people get done with treatment and they think their fatigue is going to go along with the treatment, but sometimes it takes months and years to get back to where you were. So just knowing that it's a slow process helps when you understand that. And then taking advantage of your good days. So when you do have more energy, going out and doing the stuff that you enjoy doing, or going outside and gardening, or going for that hike with your friend. And then knowing that if you have a not so good day, that it's also okay to kind of rest and relax and do a little self-care. And then benefits of nutrition for cancer survivors. So that's what we focus on a lot during our other presentations here. But choosing nutrient-dense foods that can help regain your strength and your weight. So if you lost a lot of weight during chemo or radiation, you may need to be rebuilding yourself. And that doesn't always mean that you have to gain back the 50 pounds that you lost, but making sure that you're restoring your lean body mass and that you're doing some good weight-bearing activities to help prevent osteoporosis and other things that come as you start to age. And then also managing those ongoing side effects. So again, sometimes when you start to rebuild yourself nutritionally, you're able to help alleviate some of these side effects that we talked about. And then it just helps in your overall recovery and healing. Our bodies require a lot of nutrients to function on a daily basis, and if they've been deprived over a certain amount of time, it does take a little while for yourself to rebuild. And then you can also help reduce your risk of recurrence. So this is more of the prevention side, and I think we talk more about that on the next slide. And then also helping to maintain a healthy weight. And why that is important is because the recommendations for cancer prevention and also reducing your risk for cancer recurrence is that you do want to keep your weight within a healthy range. So it's not always that you have to be the perfect BMI, but you do want to focus on your lean body mass, trying to reduce your fat mass over time, because a lot of that fat mass can alter our hormones and can cause more damage. And then being physically active every day. So the act of being active releases all kinds of good stuff in our bodies that help with DNA repair and cell repair and just good endorphins and that kind of thing. And it also helps you to maintain your weight in a healthy range. Eating a diet that's rich in whole grains, fruits, vegetables, beans. So that's more of that plant-based diet where that comes in. That's a term that's thrown around a lot, and we'll talk more about that on the next slide. Limiting your consumption of fast food, processed foods, and high fat and high sugar, like added sugar foods, is also a recommendation. Limiting alcohol consumption. So sometimes people think, oh, well, the American Heart Association recommends you have a drink for good heart health, but that's not the same for cancer. They recommend that you limit it or avoid it altogether, but if you do have it, 1 drink for women, 2 drinks for men per day. And then not using supplements to protect against cancer. So if your doctor told you that you're deficient in something like vitamin D, it's fine to take those supplements, but you don't need to buy, 2 to 10 supplements to help prevent cancer from happening. A lot of people tend to do that thinking that they're helping, but they're just creating very expensive urine. So why are plant foods so important and so healthy? they contain a lot of antioxidants. So while you're going through treatment, you don't necessarily want to be taking a lot of supplements that promote antioxidants, but it's fine to do it in your foods. So your body has built-in mechanisms to help protect you against damaged cells, and one of those are our antioxidants. So eating them from foods is perfectly fine, and they're found, again, in most of your plant foods. So phytonutrients is something that kind of goes above and beyond the vitamins and minerals that are found in our fruits and vegetables and beans. And those are what gives them their colors and their flavors and the textures of things. So they're flavonoids, polyphenols, phenols that help to protect against cancer. So as an example, grapes and berries provide polyphenols, which prevent inflammation. So we want to incorporate those. That doesn't mean that you should only eat grapes and berries. I always tell people you have to eat the rainbow because you want those different colors from all of the different fruits and vegetables to be able to make up and have all these different phytonutrients that protect us. Cruciferous vegetables, so your broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, they provide nutrients that can also help reduce heart risk. So you can see where all these things kind of piece together. Sometimes people just get so focused on dark green leafy vegetables, but you have to have all of them, you know, tomatoes, berries, all the things. And then as far as goals for survivorship, I think I did a goal setting presentation not that long ago, but you want to be very specific about what you're trying to change. And again, you don't want to try to change everything all at one time. So being specific about what it is very important. So you don't want to be like, I want to be healthy. Well, what does healthy mean to you? What are you looking to be healthy? You want to be healthy because you want to eat more vegetables. All right, so we want to eat more vegetables. That's very specific. And you want it to be measurable. You can say, well, I'm eating 2 vegetables per day now, but I'd really like to eat 4 vegetables per day. That makes it measurable. I'm either eating 4 or I'm not eating 4. You want it to be attainable. I've never eaten a vegetable in my life. I'm going to eat 7 vegetables per day. Probably not attainable. So you have to kind of start with where you're at and go with like what your lifestyle is. And then you want to be realistic, so that kind of goes hand in hand there. And then you want to time yourself. So how long is it going to take you to reach this goal? So you might be eating 2 today, but by next week you would like to have it up to 3, and by the end of the month you want to be up at 4, and then you're going to maintain that for a month. So you want to give yourself some time to work on those things and to explore other veggies and find things that you actually like to eat and have some staples in your diet. So you just want to be very realistic. And a lot of times people aren't realistic with weight loss. You know, a realistic weight loss is like half a pound a week, and that's if you're like really trying, like half a pound to a pound. More gradual weight loss is much more realistic, like a pound or 2 a month over a longer period of time. I have some doctors who call and they're like, we need so-and-so to lose 50 pounds by 6 weeks from now. We're like, you could do it, but then you're going to be malnourished and you're going to be operating on the patient, and that's just not going to have good outcomes either. So you just want to be more reasonable. It took you a long time to kind of put on those pounds, so you want to be reasonable with losing the pounds too. That way they stay off. The same is true if you lost a lot of weight and you need to gain weight. It's almost as hard for those patients to gain the weight back as it is for an obese patient to lose weight. It's very frustrating because they're like, oh, I just keep eating and nothing is happening. So you just always want to give yourself some time and a little bit of grace. As far as oncology dietitians go, so we talked about this at the beginning, but a dietitian who has the letter CSO after their name are board certified specialists of oncology nutrition. So we have to have at least 2,000 practice hours with oncology patients, and then we take a standardized nationwide test. And if you pass, you get to have your board credentialing. And we've demonstrated our experience and skills in helping patients with oncology and getting through that. And then the fun stuff. So mango lassi overnight oats. I made these last night, so I'm not going to demo them, but we do have them to sample. But they have mangoes, Greek yogurt, pure maple syrup, milk, chia seeds, oats, and I did not put anything on top. I'm sorry, food art is not my thing. But it's super easy to make. You can make 1 serving. You can make a week's worth of servings. You can put them in little mason jars and keep them in the fridge so you can just pull them out in the morning. They're great if you're on the run or you have chemo that day and you want to take something with you that's good and portable. I have a friend who makes a huge bowl. She always hosts Thanksgiving, and she has like 20 people come in from out of town. So she just makes a huge bowl for the weekend, and people can go and open them whenever they want to eat something. And that way she's not stressed about cooking every morning. So they're very versatile. And then we're going to demo the kiwi green smoothie, which is 2 kiwis, a banana, Greek yogurt, honey, fresh kale, and a cup of milk. So don't be afraid of the kale. Yes, ma'am. For like the whole ingredient, I would say at least 2. Yeah. So for the overnight oats, it was 2 servings. You'll see I made 2 of the smoothies ahead of time, like 2 servings, and it was enough for 7 cups that are like this full. So, I mean, you probably get 2 or 3 servings out of those. And then there's a banana melon smoothie. We're not going to make that one because I thought that was a lot of melons. And then helpful resources. You always have the Cancer Support Community, which is a free resource to you guys. There's all kinds of stuff going on here. The American Cancer Society is based here in Atlanta. They have great resources. The American Institute for Cancer Research is where we get a lot of our nutrition research that's done. They collect stuff globally, all kinds of studies. They review things and give us the information of what's actually got evidence behind it. And then Savor Health. I am not sure what that is, but I'm sure it's helpful. Do y'all have any questions before we start the smoothie demo? Yes, sir. Yeah. All right. So we're going to do the kiwi green smoothie. So this is great. It's green. Sometimes people get a little afraid of green stuff, but it's got a full cup of kale. I don't love kale on its own, but I already tried the smoothie and it was pretty tasty. We'll make a mess. It'll be fine. All right. So basically you're just going to throw everything in. So it calls for a cup of kale, 2 kiwis. So I cut those up. A banana, also cut up. It's got a tablespoon of honey, which is, I mean, a significant portion here for some sweetness.
Do you use raw honey?
You can. This is not raw honey. A cup of milk.
We do something similar, but put blueberries in it. Mm-hmm. A lot of antioxidants.
Yes. Blueberries, I love freezing my bananas and using them as the sweetener. So this is like a very nice versatile recipe. Like you could do fat-free Greek yogurt if you were using it more as like a weight loss kind of replacement and wanting to get your vegetables in. If you needed more calories or you were caregiving for someone, you could do whole fat yogurts. And that way you can get more calories in, whole fat milk, and get more calories. So I have to turn it on. I'm very afraid of this blender for some reason. I even practiced twice. I know they're great. That's why I get nervous. Like, is it gonna fly away? All right. So, very easy. Yeah, Vitamixes are great. You can heat it up, like you can heat up soups in here. It's crazy. So it's green, it's slushy, it's going to be good for us. The kiwi and the kale have a lot of vitamin C, so a lot of times people are like, how can I keep my immune system up? This is a great way to get the vitamin C in. You've got protein in the milk, protein in the Greek yogurt, all kinds of good nutrients up in here.